Hello, good evening. Welcome to Earshot. From today, Earshot is starting its new series, News Decoded. I am Nagendra Sharma. I am joined by Earshot co-founders, Editor-in-Chief Abhijit Majumdar and CEO Gaurav Chaudhary. The reason that I have Abhijit and Gaurav with me today is a lot is happening in the subcontinent, in the neighborhood of India. In Pakistan, dramatic developments are taking place. The Pakistan Supreme Court has begun hearing a petition why Imran Khan government did not allow a vote of no confidence to go on in the National Assembly. Supreme Court began hearing the case on Sunday. Even today, Monday, the case hearing continued, but nothing substantive has come out. On the other hand, Sri Lanka is boiling. People are out on the streets, entire cabinet has resigned, there is tremendous anger, there is no electricity, there is no fuel. We'll be discussing both the topics. First, I'm coming to Abhijit. Abhijit, India's neighborhood is on the boil for different reasons. First, Pakistan. What is happening in Pakistan?
Pakistan is happening in Pakistan.
Right.
This is par for the course. There have been 22 prime ministers so far. None of them have completed their term. They have not been allowed to complete their term. And Imran Khan, who has, who was completing 4 years of his term, does not even come at the top 3 longest serving PMs. This is something that structurally Pakistan's polity sort of actively encourages. And this is also, although one might not see that the junta or the generals are directly involved in this, but Nagendra, I firmly believe that without their approval, without their silent consent, nothing happens in Pakistan. And this is a way for the generals, for the military complex to show the world and to tell the country, tell the nation that nothing moves without us. We will not allow a civilian government to complete its term.
They'll show to the world who's the boss. We are coming back to this. Gaurav, Sri Lanka is on the boil. What has happened? Appeared to be a country prospering under tourism, was doing well. Suddenly, even the curfew doesn't seem to be working. People are out on the streets. There is nothing. What went wrong?
Sri Lanka, it's very unfortunate. It was one of the best governed countries, at least so far as the socio-economic conditions are concerned, ever since the country recovered from a very long, protracted ethnic strife there. The problem actually dates back to 2019. In the run-up to the elections in 2019, the current government actually promised deep tax cuts.
Right.
And when those were executed, it wiped out large parts of the economy because those were not sustainable. The government ran out of revenues very soon. In the meantime, COVID struck. When COVID struck, 2 things happened. The immediate impact, there were 2 immediate consequences. One, the tourism sector took a serious beating. And the tourism sector is one of the strongest edifices of the Sri Lankan economy.
It is more than a backbone of the Sri Lankan
Absolutely.
economy.
It's one of the strongest edifices on which the Sri Lankan economy actually stands. So that collapsed. And Sri Lanka also depends very heavily, and it's very similar to the Kerala state, very heavily on inward remittances of its expat community from all across the world. That collapsed because COVID struck, and COVID did not spare any country. So that also impacted the remittances that were flowing into Sri Lanka, and then had impacts all across the Sri Lankan domestic economy. There is another problem that happened. There was a very controversial organic farm law that the government brought in. What happened was that the government, in a mistaken zeal that organic farming will actually lead to will establish greater ecological balance in the island country, the government ended up banning import of chemical fertilizers. Now, organic farming cannot replace chemical fertilizer farming so far as scale is concerned. You cannot achieve, as much as it is so good, it's good for the environment, ecology, there's no question on that. But can you achieve the scale through organic farming required to feed the country? That did not happen. They have reversed the ban now, but by now, the damage has
already been done. I'll return to you, Gaurav, for the details. Abhijit, so Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan. So India's neighborhood is in turmoil. So before I come to the specifics of Pakistan, how does this augur for India? Any direct impact on India? What's happening all across? Right, immediate neighbors.
Yeah. So if you look at the long term, how things have panned out, it is unlikely that there will be much of a difference, because all said and done, again, as I go back to the whole thing, Nagendra, that the way Pakistan's politics and governance is structured, the gun will always be in the hands of the military,
Yes.
and always on the head of the civilian government. So whether Imran Khan comes or goes, whoever comes and goes, there will not be, I don't think that there will be a massive difference. However, Imran had taken Pakistan to a extremely heavy reliance on just China and Turkey.
Yes.
And it had, Imran had taken Pakistan away from its traditional allies, like the US,
US, yes.
like Saudi, like UAE. So with Imran now gone, and if new government comes in with a new prime minister, they might, and remember that the generals have also been making reconciliatory noises.
Yeah, which is very unusual. The Pakistan army chiefs seem to be speaking the language of a civilian government.
Yeah.
Where General Bajwa went to the extent of saying that we need good neighborly relations, we should have supported Ukraine. So Abhijit, the way things are, so one thing is very clear, it is known to the world, it's no secret that when Imran Khan was brought in 2018, he was army's darling. So how is it that, where did he miscalculate that the things have gone so bad now that it's only a matter of, and nobody knows what future holds for Imran himself?
Yeah, it would be difficult for Imran to come back with this kind of with the economy in this kind of a shape. And if the army is making reconciliatory noises, it's purely because of, the downhill that the nation has gone through. I mean, economically, the generals realize that the country cannot be run with this kind of, this kind of wrong decisions. And clearly, I mean, Imran, that is Sushant Sareen said in one of the video chats that Imran has done more than hundreds of raw agents could have achieved what Imran has done to Pakistan.
Well, Abhijit, whether army is making conciliatory statements, whether it is Shahbaz Sharif or it will be Bilawal Bhutto, the policy towards India is likely to remain the same.
It may get a little better for their own sake. I think it will, although it would be incremental, then please don't expect, massive bonhomie and stuff like that. It's, Pakistan is not, and the Modi government is, the foreign policy of the Modi government is not driven by idealism. It's driven by very cold self-interest. So I don't think there will be a great bonhomie or anything, but it may actually get a little better. Shade better because
Gaurav, on one side, I mean, India is very closely monitoring. I have not seen a statement from the Indian government so far on Pakistan. I was watching a program yesterday. Two former foreign ministers were there, Natwar Singh and Yashwant Sinha. Both held the view that it is Pakistan's internal matter. But Sri Lanka, India is sending oil, India is sending other things. Will India be able to bail out Sri Lanka? Can normalcy be restored? What do you see? Which way is Sri Lanka going?
That would be very difficult to say because Sri Lanka has initiated, and the only way the Sri Lankan economy will be bailed out is through an IMF World Bank bailout. And the conversations have already started. Sri Lanka has $2.31 billion of forex reserves as of February. That is just about enough to meet
1 week,
about 10 to 15 days of imports. But that could even get worse because oil prices are not coming down any sooner. But on a lighter side, all of this is happening. The problem in the subcontinent, minus India, is also going to have a bearing on the cricket industry. What happens to Pakistan's cricket? What happens to Sri Lankan cricket? And mind you, Sri Lankan cricket was going through a serious phase of transition. So was Pakistan. And after many years, a foreign team actually visited Pakistan to play a away series. There are home series in Pakistan when the Australian cricket team actually went and played there. Now, political instability is setting in Pakistan that could actually turn the clock back again, which is not good news for Pakistan, which is not good news for cricket in the subcontinent. Also, just to give you an example how India is different from the rest of the subcontinent, how India stands out as a beacon of hope. Around all this rubble, this piling rubble of instability, political and economic instability in the neighborhood, the Indian economy stands out as a strong pillar of hope, as a strong pillar of growth. The Sri Lankan economy is set to contract. Pakistan economy is extremely wobbly and rocky. Indian economy is set to grow at close to 8% plus or close to 9% this year. And the Sensex in India has regained 60,000 despite very high and hardening of oil prices. So all of this says that if the subcontinent, if anything stands out in the subcontinent, it is the Indian economy and also the political stability. It is something that you cannot imagine a Pakistan-like situation actually taking place in India. It tells you about the maturity of the political establishment. It tells you about the maturity of the polity, and it tells you how far the Indian economy has moved ahead. Please remember, India is the fastest growing major economy in the world.
Absolutely. Gaurav, you're making a very important point, which I'll take to Abhijit. Abhijit, right now, in the beginning of the discussion, you had hinted that the army is also trying to change its image. If we look at the entire Pakistan thing, the way it is playing out for the world, that a no confidence motion is not allowed to be presented inside the parliament, which they call the National Assembly. Opposition goes to the court. Supreme Court is doing a hearing, and for the first, after a long time, we are hearing familiar words from Pakistan: no confidence, Supreme Court, this article, that article. So from here on, what do you think is you keenly observe all these developments? So from here on, where is Pakistan headed?
Pakistan will get a new government.
Okay.
But how will
military background?
Obviously, there cannot be any government in Pakistan where the military is not involved. So Pakistan will most probably get a new government, but more importantly, how Pakistan fixes its economy and its external affairs, foreign relations is going to be very key, because Pakistan has almost isolated itself from
which actually it never happened even in times of Nawaz Sharif or even Musharraf's time.
It never happened.
The diplomacy didn't fail the way.
No.
At least if anywhere where Imran could have fared better would have been diplomacy.
Yeah, he has made a mess of the diplomacy, and he has the kind of language he has used is almost Trumpish. Now, America can get away with it because it is America. Pakistan cannot, use brash language, foul-mouth others, and get away with it. And also, extreme, trying to prop up a sort of Islamic cabal of Turkey, Pakistan, and Malaysia. All these silly experiments and just constantly playing to the gallery, being narcissistic. This has actually, Imran has done Pakistan no service altogether. Has done great disservice.
Can the Pakistan economy, can it come back, little bit on the road or what? Because the cracks, apart from, as Abhijit pointed out, Imran's disastrous decisions, but the main problem in Pakistan has been their economy.
Yeah, on the lighter side, Imran Khan goes on to show that leading a cricket team and leading a country are completely two different ball games. It's not.
Though Gaurav, he was in politics. He has spent time. He had a provincial government.
Correct.
He had that, but obviously lack of experience. And that's completely your point. Yes.
But on the point of the economy, and if you compare that with Sri Lanka, I think the Pakistan economy is better off, and it doesn't tell you anything. Only so far as a comparison to Sri Lankan economy.
Yes.
But that said, poverty remains a serious issue, not just in Pakistan, also in Sri Lanka and in very large parts of India. Please remember one thing: more than 400 million people in the subcontinent even less than $2 a day, and large part of those are spread across the three countries. But for the Pakistan economy to recover, it will require a policy change similar to what the Indian government did in 1991, bringing about seminal structural reforms. That is not going to be easy in Pakistan because structural reforms in India was brought about by
nobody in Pakistan would be even imagining or thinking about structural reforms.
Yeah, but poverty can be politically very, very expensive because at some point in time, this the collective pent-up anger is going to explode on someone. Who that is going to be, which establishment that is going to be, it's difficult to imagine now sitting here. But collective pent-up anger because of poverty and because of various other, there is no job, unemployment rates are extremely high. There is no industry worth its name.
Even energy, there's a massive shot for it.
Yes. So what happens? What happens when when collective frustration actually mobilizes into some kind of a movement? What the result of that is going to be, it's very difficult to imagine. But I think unless something dramatic happens in Pakistan, that country is moving towards that.
Not moving towards that. Abhijit, South Asia, the developments that happened in India's neighborhood, Russia, Ukraine has been forgotten. There's a war going on which has been forgotten, and the cascading effects on oil prices are being seen all across the world. European countries, even US has been commenting, but Europe seems to be hard hit. Abhijit, what is the latest on that? If you could tell our listeners a little bit what's happening there. That war seems to have moved out of headlines, but disaster continues. Dead bodies are piling up.
See, any war that exceeds a certain amount of time is ruinous, not just on the victim but also the attacker.
Yeah.
So Russia will also have to pay a fairly big cost for a long drawn war. From Chanakya to Sun Tzu, everybody has advised that if you're going into war, it should be 5 to 7 days max, and then come out.
That we were discussing in the initial 5-7 days. So has the Russian strategy gone wrong somewhere? They thought that they would walk into Ukraine and would easily conquer it, and it appeared, given the might of the Russian military and that. So it has been now...
It's very hard to double guess what's on Putin's mind. It's not a mind that functions in a linear sort of way that we understand. He usually doesn't. When Putin gate crashed into the Middle East crisis, Russia was not even a player in the Middle East. But look, it became the biggest player. It managed to protect and shield the Assad regime from the might of the US and Israel. For such a long time, it has just, it teamed up with Iran. It changed the entire dynamics of the Middle East crisis.
Right.
So it is hard to say whether Putin actually wanted a long drawn war, but why would he want that? It is,
as you said, it's difficult to decipher.
It's difficult to decipher. Common sense says that nobody wins in a long drawn war.
Gaurav, before we wind up today's discussion, oil prices are going up in India also. So is that the direct impact of the war, and it could actually, sort of a little bit of a dampener on the way the economy is looking up these days?
Yeah, absolutely. And the oil prices that we see, the retail oil prices, so when you're going to fill your car with petrol, and when it's every day the prices are going up, this actually is a deferred payment, a deferred rise. This rise should have taken place in the month of February.
Oh, before the war?
Or when the war started.
Right.
The reason that nothing has happened because when the prices did not start rising then was because we were in the middle of 5 assembly state elections. Right.
Yes.
So the oil marketing companies are now actually playing catch up of the prices that they did not raise, that otherwise they should have raised in the month of February. Having said that, hardening of oil prices, and Abhijit said that it's very difficult to second guess what's happening.
Yes, what? Yes.
Let me hazard a guess and say that this war is going to have a bearing on the dollar, and everything is there is some objective that Putin and probably in association with China, is trying to achieve to break the dollar hegemony. The dollar's hegemony, the dollar draws its strength, one of its many strengths, but one of the strongest pillars of sustained hegemony for several decades is what is called the concept of the petrodollar. So it was a deal between US and Saudi Arabia many decades ago that anything that is transacted in crude oil anywhere in the world has to be transacted only in dollars. Now, because of the sanctions, and Russia is the biggest exporter of oil after Saudi Arabia, biggest exporter of oil. So if India is buying oil from Russia at a discounted price and paying in ruble, and other countries are also going to do that, that actually weakens the demand for dollars. And currency prices, like many other goods, are determined, or many other commodities, are determined by the laws of demand and supply. So when the demand for dollar goes down, its price will come down and it weakens. When the dollar weakens, it actually hits at the very heart of the US economy. That is probably what Putin is probably looking at.
Yeah, Gaurav, you've given an idea for another episode of News Decoded. Petrodollar actually requires a full-fledged discussion. Abhijit and Gaurav, thank you very much for participating in our first episode of News Decoded, which will be a part of our regular coverage for our listeners. We'll be breaking down complex issues for our listeners on a regular basis. Yeah. So this was our first episode of News Decoded. Keep listening to Earshot on www.earshot.in, and also you can download the Earshot app on your mobile. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Thanks.